Hi, Jill. This is Deb. Thorough apologies. Whiteness strikes everywhere. Over the past month or so, my landlady randomly turns on the internet for just maybe 45 minutes a day, sometimes a few hours. She's actively committing attempted murder against my life. I'm in a real I'm about to die from homelessness because of the pandemic and having had a toxic mold exposure that took away my entire 40s. Now, I have figured out using evolutionary logic how to reverse this. I'm 80% done losing 200 pounds after 50. And just simply the pandemic, nobody has the time to listen to my complexity, which means nobody's paid me a cent. I've not actually earned any money for a decade, which has made me the smartest human on the planet. Being forced out of capitalism, it's not that I didn't try, it's not that I have not exhausted myself, but become an older woman, talk complexly and creatively, say you need an accommodation to work from home because you're suffering from toxic mold exposure and multiple chemical sensitivity, and no one will give you an interview. I spent 10 years not able to even get an interview. So I try to make a living online. You can scroll my posts. LinkedIn shows my stuff to barely 10 people. So I just wanted to say thanks. I needed to share. If there's any spare capacity you have to help somebody who is thoroughly alone and completely going to be discarded by the society, even though I know how to demolish racism this decade. We make it about human health. My approach is demonstrating racial harmony via racial anarchy. You know, there's the point where so many have to come to grips with everything, but having never, ever not loved Black humans, having been the only white person in many, many facets of my life, I know how we get past the race game. Now, it takes a while, but what we got to do is switch it to human health. If we don't understand what skin is, how can we solve any of these intractable problems? How are we going to reverse climate change? How are we going to stop the ever-escalating burden of chronic disease? It's all interrelated. What I had to say about melanin, fascinating philosophically. So I've been trying to do this thing. It's a large degree of difficulty. It's networking to find an executive producer to become a one-woman Socratic monologuist. I am neuro-complex, which I call having just about every neurodiversity situation. That's the effect of the mold. So much brain damage, I could barely walk and talk. I have videos demonstrating that. And now that I've gotten the ability to walk and talk back, everyone wants me to walk and talk like I'm a fifth grader. When I move and dance and do this one-woman monologue, it's incredible. But in pandemic conditions, nobody is looking for somebody to create an entire new industry. This is trauma healing, which we all need because we're experiencing co-trauma. So being utterly isolated and no humans in my life, I invented this capacity to talk to myself, to try to rewire my brain back into how to speak English. It's gotten so complex because it's all self-referential. I don't have to go slow, nor do I have to make sure people understand me. I know if people would talk to me and I could get more practice, I'll get back to the person who was a payroll implementation software consultant for over 2 decades. I did PeopleSoft, HR, payroll, not just around the country, but also throughout Europe and even Singapore. So I've gotten caught neurodiversity in my 40s from mold. It's not a developmental condition. It's an enviro-mental condition. And this is how I'm going to attack racism as well, as a societal, environmental health condition. Coming out with the phrase, whiteness is 2 things, and we have to talk about them separately. There is white superiority, which is a crime and should be criminalized in all ways. But then there's the delusion of white superiority. That's where the real mental illness is, the delusion. And being an oppressor deadens the soul. Being oppressed, obviously, constrains the body and the mind. But the soullessness of whiteness, it affects all of us, every single one of us. Because we believe seeing is believing. So when we see the effects, we're okay with it. I sort of transitioned there from a specific example to a major principle. The seeing is believing. The seeing is categorizing. The seeing is we're letting things that we see and the mental illusions. The internet's full of all of these, static images that seem to move, and the fact that literally our eyes see everything upside down. Seeing is not as reliable as we really believe it is. And I've understood how to talk about human potential and well-being via the philosophical hypothesis of bioelectricity. It's my intellectual property. I have abundance right past everyone else's pandemic attention deficit disorder. I just need to keep networking, and I need a home because the person that I'm living with is actively wanting harm to come to me because she's experiencing a little discomfort, and my not paying the rent means she can't hire people to clean her house. This is officially what she said to me. So I'm sorry to bring all this in, but there's a point to all this. And the point is, our society needs somebody like me who, again, this is a little bit of a just sorry for completely not being able to show up to our meeting. I didn't want to explain that somebody had a vendetta against me, hoping that we'd be able to talk, but I can't keep being thought flaky because of all of the ways society's stacked against me. Every way, shape, or form that I have failed that's brought me to being dead bankrupt is because of the environment. And I've got to find some people who can help me out. So that's me in about a 10-minute nutshell. What I need most urgently is a spare room for me and my dog within driving distance of Seattle. That may not be something you can help. I'll come to the Bay Area. Don't get it twisted. What I'm looking for is to try to find a wellness destination to host me as the philosopher in residence. Everyone's got occupancy, and I just keep trying to do that, and they just don't really seem to read the presentation. So if you have any, like the 1440 Multiversity, Esalen, any of these large destination wellness retreat centers, let me come be the philosopher in residence. I will I have people to talk to and go over the philosophical hypothesis of bioelectricity. It quite literally is the unifying theory of African, Eastern, and Western approaches to do-it-yourself healthcare. So as a philosopher, I can disrupt the accountant-managed disease care paradigm that is harming everyone in the US, especially people with more densely melanated skin. It's not just a vitamin D thing. It is about bioelectricity. So, thank you so much again. Hard to apologize for something that I have no control over, but it makes me feel incompetent to not be able to schedule a meeting with any confidence that I will have internet access from somebody who simply has, she can't hear a word I say. She's made up her mind. Fear has made up her mind. The fear of whiteness. Why are all these white people so overreacting at the slightest like elbow bump of discomfort and killing the people who just accidentally bump them in the elbow? Whiteness wants to kill. Whiteness gets so irate. I can explain that. We'll be off on a 33-minute video, so I'll say bye-bye. I'll say I have a really good act. We see this as performance, as a one-woman monologue, Socratic monologue. I go off, I use my personal stories, I talk really intelligently, I demonstrate life-centric thinking, all of this stuff. Hashtag redhead to She-Hulk. It's worth investing in. First off, it's just keeping me alive. I shouldn't have to die because I'm smart. Because I've suffered from toxic mold exposure and my brain only functions. Right? My left brain basically doesn't work right now. I have to be in my creative right brain. And that works. I've rewired just like a stroke victim. And we live in a world and society where the second you say you need a creative job, people like starving artist, spend decades for your craft. I'm 50 fucking 2 at the end of my life. If no one can spend the time to see what I have to offer. Thank you, Joe. I really been through a lot. But I'm learning to adapt. I just can't continue doing everything myself. And that is what humanity did to me as a morbidly obese woman. Completely, I never got asked out on a date until I was 51. It was this past summer. And it was on Zoom, so it really don't count. Never been asked out on a date. Bought every meal for myself. Self-funded my own decade-long disability. That's how come. Start begging strangers for help, but saying, look at what I'm going to make of this. Because as you know, and this is to sum up, every midlife metamorphosis that becomes well known includes somebody being at rock bottom. So I got that. Think about all the people who are judged for being at rock bottom, who don't believe in themselves or what they have to offer the world. who we lose. Help me succeed on behalf of everyone else, and I will do my damnedest to be Ms. Inclusivity and care for everyone that society's not cared for. Harmony.